What is up, guys? I am the one and only Eagle Double T. I think we can all agree that over the years, video game console manufacturers have come up with some pretty great controllers, such as the Xbox One controller and the GameCube controller. However, they've also made some stinkers. So in this video, I would like to go in depth on the controller that I think is the worst video game controller of all time. So without further ado, let's begin. Guys, I think some of you are going to agree with me on this. However, this might be a hot take for some people. I think the worst controller ever made is the DualShock 2. Now, I think this for I've narrowed it down to three specific reasons why I think this. Build quality, it being overrated, and it not innovating at all. So let's get into this controller being overrated. On its face, I think there could be arguments definitely made that there are controllers worse than this one. For example, I mean, the N64 controller comes to mind because it's very, strange. It's not like we're used to. It tried to innovate but kind of failed. However, I think the N64 controller, for all of its flaws, it does still have some positive takeaways. Whereas with the DualShock 2, I really just don't see it. Years ago, I remember seeing videos, and I even had a good friend who really liked the PS2 controller, and they praised it as one of the best controllers of all time. And I think that is where my disdain for this controller really began. Because nostalgia aside, I really don't see objectively how this could even break the top 10, to be honest. Build quality and design is another category that I think this controller really struggles in. Even setting aside the factor that these controllers generally feel pretty cheap with, not the highest quality plastic, not very sturdy. The quality of the buttons and how you interface with the controller itself isn't very good either. I mean, I don't think it takes very long for these D-pads to really start to get mushy and not feel very accurate anymore. The joysticks are another issue, I think, because most PS2 controllers, over time, the joysticks would become sticky and the rubber would begin to break down. The comfort is the biggest single problem that I probably have with the PS2 controller. Controllers at the time, such as the GameCube controller, they had a very seamless design where you didn't feel like there was anything awkward pressing into your fingers. There was no jagged surfaces. And even the Dreamcast controller had this. Very seamless. The PS2 controller doesn't have this. It has these edges right here. And when I'm holding this controller, I very much know that my fingers are resting against something that isn't smooth. I can definitely feel the ridge right there. And me personally, I just really don't like it. In addition to this, controllers like the GameCube controller were kind of contoured to sit into the fat palm of your hand and allowed your fingers to very nicely rest around it. But the PS2 controller, once again, did not really have this. It was more kind of squished horizontally. So it doesn't want to sit into the fat side of your palm. You have to kind of set the skinny edge. And to me, my hand just doesn't contour around it. The controller, in addition, is also quite small. I don't have particularly huge hands, but even just having two fingers around and putting my third finger just on the back, even this still isn't very comfortable. There's the ridge right here from where the joystick assembly is. I can feel that pressing into my fingers, and it's not particularly comfortable. The comfort on this controller, to me, just isn't very seamless. I would love to give this controller points for innovation if it actually had any innovation to speak of. Because all the innovation really happened in the DualShock 1, which is basically the same controller. I'll give PlayStation credit for this. The DualShock 1, at a time where no other design like that existed, was a good controller. And it really did kind of set the modern day gaming controller template. However, these controllers are not the DualShock 1, and we can't really treat them as such. The DualShock 2 was a good opportunity to make a better controller than the DualShock 1, because the DualShock 1, even though it was a new, kind of untested design, it of course had these non-rounded edges, these ledges that are here. And with the PS2 controller, it would have been the perfect opportunity to correct that, to make possibly the handles a little bit longer to make it more comfortable, to just tweak the shape and give it better joysticks, a better D-pad. However, none of this happened, and I think that that's also a reason why I kind of have to put it on this list as one of the worst controllers ever. I think that pretty well sums up the points of my video. Now, could you make an argument that there are actually worse controllers? I think you could. I mean, for example, I would even humor that the Wii Classic Controller Pro is worse. It's very similar. I would listen to arguments on that. However, I think the PS2 controller being such a victim of overhype and being overrated, I think truly is its biggest sin. And I think it's that in combination with the various other flaws this controller has that really puts it over the top for me as the worst controller of all time. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the DualShock 2 down in the comments below. I'm sure the comment section is going to be pretty lively in terms of people who either like this controller, hate this controller, or feel kind of mutual about it. I'd love to hear your thoughts down in the comments. And please like this video and subscribe if you enjoyed it and would like to see more content from me. I am the one and only Eagle Double T, signing off. Goodbye.